Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman, Kagro, in the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Friday, March 6th, 2026, except for Kristi Noem, in which case, I don't know. It's the end of days, I guess, for Kristi Noem, though she does have a new job, allegedly. It's Friday, time for weekend chaos, wartime chaos at that. Although, who knows? I mean, I don't think that the war is going to be over anytime soon, but even the administration doesn't admit that this is a war. Sometimes the administration says, yes, it's a war. Sometimes the administration says no, but it's a unitary executive, so you tell me what's happening. I don't know. Anyway, the unitary executive guy keeps saying it's a war. Meanwhile, it's looking more and more like terrorism every day as a big investigative report by, I don't even have it at hand now that I think about it, but I can find it for you because I know that Greg Sargent was discussing it this morning, and so I can look it up. But a big, I don't know whether it was the New York Times, Washington Post, both, a investigative analysis, I guess, of some kind that tells us what we always suspected. I say always, but I mean like for the past couple of days since it happened. It's a New York Times investigation. A video analysis, as he puts it here, finds that the bombing of scores of school children in Iran came amid other U.S. strikes in the vicinity. And so I guess it stopped short of concluding that the United States absolutely positively did fire the munitions that blew up that school. But I guess that's the lawyers telling them to stop short. But, I mean, it's kind of been a known thing for a couple of days, but I don't know. We were waiting for some kind of conclusive proof or something because, well, you know, I can't blame anybody for wanting conclusive proof of that. Did you blow up that school? You don't want to jump to it. Well, Pete Hegseth does. That's a big problem, too. Pete Hegseth is ready to jump out and say, yeah, you're damn right. You know, we ordered the code kill school children, and I'd do it again if I have. No, I'm being charged with a crime here. Pete Hegseth is very excited about it. And I don't know what to tell you about it. It's just sort of through the looking glass sort of a thing. Normally, we don't get that excited about these sorts of things and shout about having done them and be proud of them. Well, you know, we try to duck responsibility for them. It's not that we didn't do them. It's that we tried to say it was a mistake or somebody else did it or how do we know that it really happened? But not with this administration. Anyway, who's even in this administration? No one even knows because Kristi Noem was sort of fired yesterday. It was a very confusing day yesterday. She finished up testifying before the House and Senate oversight committees. Committees of jurisdiction. I don't remember whether it was absolutely the oversight committee that actually conducted the hearings or where it was. I can't even remember now because they were so crazy, and really all we were interested in was what stupid thing Kristi Noem was saying and what lie she was engaging in. But the real irony seems to be that if the last straw in all of this was, as is sort of being reported, the conclusion they're kind of reaching, is that Trump threw her overboard over their grilling of her for the $220 million, allegedly $220 million program of TV ads, ad campaign featuring her and her collagen lips and hair extensions and everything else that went with it, the cosplay, etc., featuring her saying great things about Donald Trump. And I mean, that was the design of the program. And what's really amazing is, all right, she says they were grilling her about it. What they were really grilling her about was how come it was a no-bid contract? How come the no-bid contracts went to friends and family of people who worked for you? It was ridiculous. It was a huge waste of money. It shouldn't have been done in the first place. God only knows how you got to that price tag. Then it was a sweetheart deal on top of that. Plus, it made everybody look dumb. And I guess in an effort to try to pin it on the White House. I don't know if the Democratic questioners about that, and there were questions from both sides of the aisle, as I understand it, about this campaign. But I think the Democratic questioners were maybe fishing a little bit. This was a real thing and a real problem and a real issue, and somebody had to take responsibility for it. But they might have been fishing a little bit to say, well, did you have clearance from the White House to do this thing? So, yeah, if she would say yes, and the answer was yes, by the way. And then you could pin it on the White House operation, possibly on Donald Trump himself, because, he doesn't let anything slip through his fingers if there's a way to control money involved. Everything else slips through his fingers, of course, but or he finds innovative ways of monetizing every issue. Anyway, she, I think, predictably said, yeah, sure, I was authorized by the White House. Honestly, it would have been silly to say anything else, not least for the reason that it was, in fact, authorized by the White House. And so anyway, some time passes. Donald Trump decides that the whole series of hearings was an embarrassment for her, for him, for everyone involved. All right. That's enough. I think he also, it was reported before the hearings that he was personally irked by the relationship the information that seemed to be leaking out everywhere about the relationship between her and Corey Lewandowski, which everyone still denies or whatever. But, that's what you do with adulterous relationships. Everyone denies them. Sorry. That's kind of just sort of part of it. Part of the fun, really, honestly. If I don't know. I guess if you're going to use an antiquated term like adulterous relationships, but okay. Anyway, the point is, he decides, okay, I've had enough. I'm embarrassed about this whole thing. I don't think he liked the headlines or the insinuations about her and Corey Lewandowski either. But I guess in the first instance, they used this commercial, the TV commercials, as an excuse. I never authorized. I didn't know anything about it. Anyway, there are news outlets have had the confirmation that it was a coordinated campaign for months now. And in fact, somebody in their reporting has gotten a hold of emails back and forth between who knows who, but basically indicating, oh, yeah, sure. They told the White House all about it. The White House said, yeah, great idea, go for it. And I think the selling point of the campaign, though it was pretty clear from the start that it was going to be starring Kristi Noem, but the idea was, well, it'll be good for you, sir, because all of my commercials will be about me telling people, one, immigrants get out, and two, how fabulous Donald Trump is. The reason immigrants should self-deport is if they don't, the amazing Donald Trump will find them and deport them in a very fast and very fair and American manner. And I'm here to tell you in a cowboy hat that is definitely true. And my name is Kristi Noem. I mean, it was definitely self-promotion, no doubt about that. But it was sold to the White House as, oh, this is going to be an ad campaign in praise of Donald Trump. And honestly, thinking back to my first recollections of having heard about this planned campaign was that it might even have come from, the idea may even have come from the White House originally. I would like the Department of Homeland Security, in fact, I'd like all departments to produce television ads talking about how fabulous I am and what an amazing program your department is implementing because of my amazingness. And I think they were just the first ones to respond. So, I don't know, the ultimate irony, I guess, that the leopard has eaten this surgically altered face at long last. When I say at long last, I mean 1 year into the job. I wanted to really lean into the microphone for that one. That's basically it, although I like the sound of that. We should stay leaned into the microphone all the time. Anyway, yeah, it's as you expected. She's clearly one of the dumbest people in the administration. I mean, they're all very dumb, so it's very hard to pick one out, but she's pretty dopey. And I don't know what motivated people to elect her governor of South Dakota, but there's not that many people in South Dakota, I guess. And that's basically it. And she was providing a at the time, a little bit prettier face, if I may say so, before she got herself surgically altered. And by the way, there are no returns on Mar-a-Lago face. You are stuck with that. You injected that collagen. You surgically altered yourself. You can get rid of the hair extensions. That's easy enough to do, but and take off some of the makeup. But that's it. I mean, it is amazing. You surgically altered your face for this administration, and you got a year of work out of it. That's the other thing. Anyway, who looks like a genius out of all of this? I guess Tricia McLaughlin, her horrific, horrible, terrible, no good secretary, spokesperson who jumped ship, and I guess she jumped ship because they had $134 million in the tank, she and her husband, and that was about it. I think we actually got the chance to mention that yesterday, but I don't think we knew that she was fired before the show ended. Anyway, that was fun, and the other fun thing about it is I don't think she knew that she was fired before the show ended either. And by the show, I mean her last press conference, although apparently there's some question about whether or not she knew that she had in fact been fired. And then I guess there's some question about whether or not she's in fact been fired, because Trump created a new job for her and nobody had ever heard of it until today. She's special envoy. That's a thing that you do with retired people. Special envoy to... Now, this I don't know anything about because... maybe because it's new and it hasn't been announced yet. I think, as I recall in her remarks, she said, I'm being appointed special envoy to this thing which will be announced later by Donald Trump, which is kind of weird to steal his thunder when you've just been fired for stealing his thunder. But maybe it's not weird. Maybe it's an attempt at kicking back a little bit. But she could always lose that job, too, so I'd watch out a little bit. S.H.I.E.L.D of the Americas, which I gather is a sort of a transcontinental, don't say trans, right, but Pan-American, I guess you could say, Pan-American anti-drug interdiction. No, well, it's drug interdiction. It's what kind of interdiction are we doing? An anti-drug one, I guess. All right, you see what I mean? To fight, I guess, narco trafficking, if you want to use their term for it, which may or may not be that the action in Ecuador might be an early indicator of what this is all about. And I guess it's something that, sadly, it will involve diplomacy, and Kristi Noem is going to be on the job. But all right, I'm not certain whether it comes with any housing, though, because remember, of course, that Kristi Noem moved on to into the naval yard and the Navy base in Washington, D.C., rather than live in her private housing where she started, but where Corey Lewandowski took a place across the street, but that was too easy to photograph him making his way across the street to her apartment with his overnight bag. So, oh my God, we've been doxxed, is what they said. They were photographed on the street, as many people often are, particularly when they are high-ranking government officials making their way in between each other's apartments, though Lewandowski wasn't a high-ranking official, of course. Anyway, they decided that they could avoid that scrutiny. One, if they moved into the same quarters, I suppose, that would have done it. Or two, they still would have been spotted going in and out for groceries, etc., or out to restaurants to be robbed, as one of her favorite pastimes, bringing bundles of cash with her to restaurants and losing them. Everyone remembers that story. So they moved on to the naval base and they kicked the commandant of the commandant of the Coast Guard out of the housing usually provided to that person. And in this case, one of the first female commandants, I think, of the Coast Guard. Anyway, you're out, we're in. You got 3 hours to pack up your stuff and move out of here. We're going to take the house. Now the house, I guess, belongs to the special envoy designate to S.H.I.E.L.D of the Americas. Not sure how long that's going to remain. And new guy who's going to be nominated, of all the people that they could come up with, of course. I think in watching people discuss the nomination and discuss his track record, the second dumbest guy currently in the United States Senate, Markwayne Mullin. And people, rightly pointing out all of his various foibles, and there are plenty, and there's lots of stuff in Instapaper, and I guess we should get to some of those stories and tell you about them. Plenty about Markwayne Mullin. He's, just generally made a nuisance of himself on television, going on TV of late and for the past couple of months, saying dumb things about the war and policy of all sorts about the American government, and just really one of the more annoying and consistently dumb statement makers, with the only one eclipsing him so far, I think, Tommy Tuberville. But both are on their way out, and that's good news. I also happened to see mention via social media, Blue Sky, last night. Look at that. I got a note from Justice to share with you in a minute. Anyway, the note is that Markwayne Mullin is perhaps most famous. He's probably most famous. Well, maybe not even famous for that. I guess he's a former MMA fighter. I don't know whether he fought in UFC per se or not, but he had a brief and I guess relatively successful career in the sense of winning and losing, but not successful enough to stay in that career, or at least not for very long. Anyway, then he went on to be elected to the House of Representatives. He was famously pictured on January 6th, crouching between rows of seats on the House floor, taking cover, which, for a big tough guy, it doesn't look great, but for like a normal person in the middle of a riot, it looks kind of normal. But anyway, the story that's circulating about him, where is this? I don't know. I can look it up. There's like 5,000 people covering. I was pretty sure I had packed it away here in Instapaper and that it had come from, maybe it's buried. I'll close Instapaper and reopen it and see if that helps. But I thought Mediaite had the story. If he's famous for anything beyond the MMA fighting, here it is. Markwayne Mullin. I got to read you. I'll just read it straight out of the headlines. You probably all know what's coming. Markwayne Mullin reportedly fingered nostrils of colleagues and their spouses during a visit to Israel. And I saw somebody use that infamous, Steve, is it McMahon? What's McMahon's name? Not his wife. Maybe it isn't Steve. Shoot, I can't remember any. Vince McMahon, that's it. I'm like thinking way back. The wrestling guy. Think back when you were a kid. Vince McMahon. You've seen the meme, and they use it for like escalating more and more ridiculous before you even get to the end of a sentence, as your mind blows up at the ridiculousness of this particular headline. Right? Markwayne Mullin reported. Okay, we're already in trouble. Reportedly fingered what? Gross. What? Nostrils? The nostrils of colleagues? And their spouses? And then, of course, during a visit to Israel. Sure. When else are you going to finger nostrils? Right? I mean, oh my God. So there's the story. This is a November 2003 publication. Michael Luciano wrote the story, and then his head exploded. I don't know if we've ever heard from him again. A former House Republican and his wife claimed that in 2015, it's a big year for nostrils, really, to be fair, Senator Markwayne Mullin, then a congressman, took photos of himself. I mean, I don't know how else you otherwise come up with that accusation, but maybe someone else takes the photo. Caught you red-handed, green-handed, green-fingered, something. I don't know. But he took the photos himself. Isn't that awesome? Took photos of himself, putting his finger up the noses of sleeping lawmakers and their spouses during a visit to Israel. Ordinarily, this would be like maybe a fraternity road trip prank. But I don't think he's a college guy, actually, Markwayne. But not colleagues on a congressional delegation. Mullin made waves this week when he tried to pick they put nose and then strike through, pick a physical fight with Teamsters President Sean O'Brien during a Senate hearing. Yeah, I remember that one too. But that would be his thing, picking physical fights because he's an MMA guy, or was one. He also looks to be a no-jacket guy like, what's his name from the Ohio State wrestling team? Jim Jordan, right. Okay, the source of the story is former Representative David Trott, a Republican of Michigan, whose account was relayed in Friday's edition of Politico's Playbook. And here it is, excerpted from Politico's Playbook, that why it matters, it's other people's noses. Oh, that's Axios with the why it matters. Wednesday night, after a full day of coverage of Senator Markwayne Mullin's near fisticuffs with a Teamster leader. Oh, this is where it comes from. And that was the impetus for reporting it. And his subsequent unapologetic victory lap of media appearances, we got an email from former Representative David Trott of Michigan, who served with Mullin in the House. My wife and I have a story about Senator Mullin. If you're interested, consider our interest piqued. We called up the former congressman who told us about an AIPAC sponsored trip. AIPAC! So now your head really is exploding. You knew AIPAC had to be in there somewhere if you're getting Republicans to go to Israel. Anyway, they could be just under some sort of weird dominionist sponsorship. Anyway, we called up the former congressman who told us about an AIPAC sponsored trip to Israel in August of 2015 that he remembered. About 40 members attending, plus many spouses, and among those spouses was his wife, Kathleen Cappy Trott. I don't know why we have to know that, but that's it's a fun nickname, Cappy. K-A, her Kathleen, she spells with a K, so Cappy, K-A-P-P-Y. I like it, Cappy Trott. Sounds like a comic book character or something. Anyway, at this point, he handed over the phone to Cappy. She told us about the flight to Israel, which was hampered by layovers and delays. Though they were promised a quick shower in the hotel upon arriving, that schedule was revised on the fly. Instead, they'd immediately board buses to see an Iron Dome installation and a kibbutz. That's a trip to Israel for you. We were in the clothes we've been wearing for like 24 hours, Cappy said. We get on this bus. It's a couple-hour bus ride, and people are kind of leaning on their spouse's shoulders and falling asleep. And this idiot starts walking up and down, idiot, right to it, starts walking up and down the bus with his camera, and anyone who fell asleep, he would put his finger in their nose and take a picture. I mean, wow. Okay, it's a dumb little prank, but I mean, you're in Congress. I don't know. Anyway, I said to myself, if that idiot comes near me when I fall asleep, I'm going to punch him. Well, it's a thought, Cappy told us. And I said to Dave, this is a U.S. congressman? That congressman? Markwayne Mullin. Some people were mad. Some people were laughing. Yeah. There were a couple of women who were mad, Cappy said. If you're trying to fall asleep, somebody you don't know has his finger. It was just middle school, and we were in Israel, and we were going to see the Iron Dome and go to a kibbutz. Just didn't seem appropriate. I'm not certain what destination would be appropriate in Israel for somebody. Well, to be fair, we were on our way to blank. So putting a finger up a stranger's nose, I don't think there is one like that's going to make that any better, but I don't know. Anyway, they said that Mullin's recent round of publicity jostled their memory. Contemporary press reports verify that Mullin was, in fact, on this 2015 trip to Israel. Politico stated it reached out to Mullin's staff multiple times, but has not received a response. Now, on Tuesday, and this is again reported back in 2023, Mullin traded barbs with the Teamsters president in schoolyard fashion. Mullin saying, "Sir, this is a time, this is a place. You want to run your mouth? We can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here." What does that even mean? O'Brien says, "Okay, that's fine. Perfect. You want to do it now? I'd love to do it right now. Well, stand your butt up then. You stand your butt up." This is pretty good. Everybody comes away looking good in that one. With that, Mullin stood up, stuck his finger up his nose, took a selfie, and prompting Bernie Sanders to intervene. "Sit down," he exclaimed. "You're a United States Senator." He did say it exactly like that. Well, so what? So, stick your finger up his nose. You're allowed to do that as a United States Senator. So there you go. He is, I guess, the Secretary of Homeland Security designate at the moment. And I just want to point out that I also saw on social media yesterday people pointing to, what were they pointing to? NPR story I think I can find this for you, too. An NPR story in which it was said in the Blue Sky Post linking to the story. They got it wrong, and I think I skimmed the story to see whether they got it wrong in the text of the story, and I don't think they did, so maybe it's just the text of the Blue Sky Post. But Adam Cohen pointed this out quite correctly. Let's open it up so I can share it with you. Adam Cohen is accidental liberal, but it's spelled accidental liberal, with one L in there too. So lots of spelling liberties taken there, but he's liberal now. Adam Cohen doesn't provide much more beyond he's a lawyer, advocate, and activist. Advisory board and Demcast, though, would be his affiliations, and he points this out. NPR runs the story showing one last shot of the surgically altered face of Ice Barbie Kristi Noem on her way out the door, stepping in as acting secretary. That's right, you heard me correctly. Acting secretary is GOP Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma, who Trump has said had, quote, wisdom and courage required to advance our America First agenda. That accompanying the photo of Kristi Noem with an article headlined, Trump fires Kristi Noem as DHS chief, named Senator Markwayne Mullin to replace her. Although in this version it does say stepping in, right? That whole point. Stepping in as acting secretary is Markwayne Mullin. And Adam rightly points out, what do you mean stepping in as acting secretary, right? By law, Markwayne Mullin is not eligible to serve as acting secretary, acting or otherwise. Right, you can't hold those jobs both at the same time. You can resign from the Senate, effective immediately, and make that happen, though. Hi, everyone. It's me, Commercial Guy. This time here to remind you that there are a number of ways you can support the show even without spending a dime. Except for the dime that you spent on internet access so you could hear the show. Ignore that one. Anyway, I'm talking about feeding the evil algorithms that make the modern internet tick. When those YouTubers and TikTokers plead with you to smash that like button or subscribe so you never miss an episode, or even just leave a comment, it's because they know that it makes the algorithms more likely to recommend their content to other users. And they must know what they're talking about because their shows have millions of subscribers. And mostly those shows are terrible. We rule. So go find us on YouTube, find us on Libsyn, Stitcher, or Patreon, or Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Amazon, Pandora, and then like us, love us, post a comment, ring the bell, punch the clown, shock the monkey, whatever you're supposed to do on that platform to make that algorithm think we're cool. Thanks so much for helping us blindly walk into Skynet's oblivion, but maybe with a little extra coin in our pockets. All right, welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. So I guess I should take a look and see in the NPR article whether they do in fact make that mistake. I feel like when I finally opened it, the text did not match what was in the Blue Sky Post, and I think they may have realized the error at some point and changed it, which good. That's fine. But yeah, the Post does say stepping in as acting secretary. What kind? Acting! Right. Acting, interim, doesn't really matter which one it would be, but it can't happen. And the reason, of course, is the Constitution. Show me the Constitution. We'll get close to the microphone. You want to go right now? Stand your butt up. Show me in the Constitution where it says I can't be acting Homeland Security. Okay. It is Article 1, Section 6, Clause 2. No senator or representative shall, during the time for which he was elected, be appointed to any civil office under the authority of the United States, which shall have been created, or the emoluments of which shall have been increased during such time. There's that as well. And no person holding any office under the United States shall be a member of either house during his continuance in office. So not only can he not vote himself a raise if they did that, right? If at any point during Markwayne Mullin's service in Congress, he voted to raise the salary of the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. He will not be entitled to pocket that raise if he takes that job. But in addition to that, you can't take that job while you're also a member of the House or Senate. So, this stuff happens all the time at the beginning of a new administration, and, this one no exception, believe it or not. But, you name people to your cabinet from out of Congress, and what do they have to do? Why do we always have special elections following a situation like this? A new president or new governor comes in and takes people from the state legislature, same thing. A chain reaction of special elections, and the answer is because that happens. Okay, so is it just a mistake by NPR? I think so. I guess we don't have to call out the author for having made the mistake at this point. If it's been caught and corrected, then it's just, routine miss. But yeah, as I'm reading the article here, President Trump fired Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. That happened. And said Republican Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma would replace her. That happened too. That's all correct. Noem will be moving to special envoy for the S.H.I.E.L.D of the Americas, our new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere we are announcing on Saturday in Doral, Florida. Trump posted on social media. I thank Kristi for her service at Homeland, the television show Homeland. And no mention incorrectly of Markwayne Mullin taking over now or at any particular point in the future as acting secretary. So, all right, good job to the writer and editorial staff here. It was Jimena Bustillo is got the byline on there. I don't know whether she wrote that part or whether that was editorial stuff or that was social media stuff and not in the content of the article. So don't blame her for it. And even if she did write it, okay. I mean, it's a mistake that people could make. You have to come and listen to shows like this one. Well, or read the Constitution to know offhand that kind of stuff is impermissible. You wouldn't know it from this administration, though. So fair game on that one. Okay. So let's see. Other things that were of importance. I'm going to jump back to Instapaper. Ah, yes. Here's an example of us doing a fantastic job. That job is looking at my phone. But, the point is I've turned it into a more important job by telling you on your phone, if that's where you're listening to the show, that I've seen this on my phone. And then, as Rebecca has told everybody, but I don't think you've heard the commercial yet, and I really have to pressure the editing suite to roll this thing out today. You'll sound smarter at the water cooler, right? So if you were listening to the show live or yesterday, or you listened to the podcast, and you're ready to hit the water cooler now, talking about the circumstances of the sinking of that Iranian ship, well, now, I guess, if you waited until today, it says you should be listening to the show live rather than waiting for the podcast. Get up early if you have to. You knew by water cooler time on the East Coast, if you were a live listener, that, hey, there was something really unseemly about the sinking of this Iranian naval ship. We read yesterday, it was, whose report was it? We heard from, I could go and look at the links that I sent to to Scott yesterday about this story so that I can credit it correctly. Where is it here? Yeah, here we go. It was Olga Nestorova, one street, maybe one ST press, unless it's Nest. Oh, that's, I'm like, okay. Sometimes when it's all mashed together, you're trying to separate out the words. It's not, it looks like what would be like one street, Onest. It's Olga Nestorova, Nest Press. Got it. Anyway, if you're looking for her online on Blue Sky, onestpress.onestnetwork.com. I do not love the protocol for Blue Sky. But anyway, more to the point, this was the person who found Kanwal Sibal's tweet about this. Conwell Siebel being the former Indian foreign minister who said, hey, everybody should know that this Iranian ship was off Sri Lanka for a reason, not just free roaming spirit out there in the Indian Ocean. It was there as part of a naval exposition / exercise during which lots of countries were invited to participate, including the United States, who initially said yes and then withdrew for some reason. But the bigger point to all of this is that you also had to be unarmed at the time. You couldn't be carrying any ammunition, and they would have known that. And that it's starting to sound like the United States knew that the Iranian ship was going to be participating and then lay in wait in the area with a submarine so that they could fire on them, though they knew they were unarmed, and score a sinking, and then Pete Hegseth could make a big speech about what a big tough guy he was for ordering somebody else to murder somebody else. Because that's what it comes down to, essentially. And again, we're getting tired of putting the question this way, but what would happen if we saw it in another country, right? We hear that one all the time from Brendan Nyan. And the answer is it would be called state-sponsored terrorism. It would certainly be called terrorism, and because we're doing it, state-sponsored terrorism. Although people objected to my characterization of it as state-sponsored terrorism, they said, well, more like serial killer stuff. Because usually state-sponsored terrorism has some end goal in mind in murdering people. But this one just seems to be for the thrill of having content of us murdering people. So the New Republic has picked up the story, and if you were, it was published yesterday. Do they have a time on this one? 5:22 p.m. So water cooler time on the East Coast was largely over with, unless you were working overtime. And but if someone had run into you at, let's say, the coffee machine, even though you shouldn't be having coffee that late, but if you're working overtime, maybe you're looking for a pick-me-up. Water cooler, whatever, or your DoorDash driver bringing you food that you can eat while you're working overtime, whatever is happening, 5:22, and they run into you and they say, yes, I'm your DoorDash driver, but have you seen the story in the New Republic by Hafiz Rashid that's titled The Most Chilling Detail in the U.S. Attack on an Iranian Naval Ship? And they would be looking expectantly at you with puppy dog eyes and raised eyebrows. And you would say, I haven't seen the piece, but are they talking about the sinking of the Iranian warship that had been just recently participating in the Indian naval exposition called Milan? And he would say, oh my God, you're a genius. And you would say, I am, because I listen to Kagro in the morning, every morning, and I already knew that, and I've known it all day, and I'm such a genius, I'm stuck here at work, and you have to bring me food. I can't get out of here. What a genius you are. All right, well, sorry. Anyway, the point is you were well informed, even if you couldn't get out of work. The Iranian warship, the subheader of this story says, was taking part in an international exercise with many other countries, including the United States. Only maybe it didn't actually include the United States, but it was supposed to. Let's see how Hafiz tells the story. It is illustrated, by the way, because all things are illustrated this way these days with this department. They do say Department of War when they talk about it inside the administration, which is weird because I think everybody remembers it from the movies as the War Department. And we always used to call it the Defense Department. It's interchangeable, although the official name is, of course, Department of. But Department of War sounds stupid and stilted. War Department sounds casual and acceptable, maybe because we've heard it so often. This is, although the photo image credit is U.S. Department of Defense, so that's kind of funny all by itself. But they provided a screen cap of the explosion of the torpedoing of this ship because content is king, and this is all about producing content. Murder for content. That's what's happening. It is a screen grab of a video provided by the Defense Department, a U.S. submarine sinking the Iranian frigate Iris, right? Iranian Republic. I forget what this is. Islamic Republic of Iran, I guess there's and then ship. Greg explained it to us the other day. Dena, D-E-N-A, off of Sri Lanka's coast on March 4th. Here's the story. Getting around to it now. The U.S. Navy's attack on an Iranian frigate, the Iris, Iranian ship Dena, on Wednesday was the first time an American submarine has sunk an enemy ship since World War II. There hasn't much call for that lately. But the Dena may not have been armed because it was returning from an international exercise in the Indian Ocean, and the U.S. Navy likely knew it was because it was taking part in the same exercise. But again, a word of caution there is it may not have been armed. It was probably well, everyone says with some certainty, participating in this exercise. During the exercise off the coast of India, if you're invited by India, you presumably are complying with the rules. Offload your munitions. I don't know where you offload your munitions. Maybe at home in your home port, and you sail unarmed, thinking you're going to an international exhibition. What's the problem? Over in India, it's a risk, going about unarmed if you're a warship. But they may also have said, let's stop and offload our munitions. Maybe they have an arrangement with Pakistan, and they could do that. And they said, we'll pick up the munitions on our way back, because we do have to sail through the Persian Gulf area, or the Gulf of Oman, perhaps, and maybe both. And it would be wise to be armed. We are, after all, a naval vessel. But it may also have been that they just never went armed. So it's unclear. They could have picked up their arms on their way out of Deadwood, on the way back. So they're hedging. Anyway, both the United States and Iran were taking part. Really? Okay. In the Milan 2026 exercise, that is a very confusing thing because of the Winter Olympics, of course, organized by the Indian Navy on February 15th through the 26th. That's a lengthy exercise. With the U.S. sending a maritime patrol aircraft. Oh, that's where her blanket went. And Iran sending the Dena. Iranian sailors from the ship paraded on land before India's president. Before India's president what? Before India's president had breakfast, I bet. But that's an interesting phrasing. That's taken directly from that Twitter post that we read you the day before. Parading before that's kind of weird and stilted, but he reproduces it here. The exercise in question required ships not to carry any ammunition. Normally, the Dena carries various missiles and guns, including anti-ship missiles. Because the U.S. also took part, it would have been aware that the Dena was unarmed. Well, if it was smart, but the U.S. might not be smart enough to know that. It's logical, but Former Indian Foreign Minister Kanwal Sibal accused the attack of being premeditated, as the U.S. was aware of the Iranian ship's presence in the exercise. So you can see there is a direct connection. I've lost track of the name. Hafiz Rashid was obviously aware of this Twitter posting as well. So that's why the language came directly from it. Marching before, right? Parading before the president. But anyway, the U.S. has ignored India's sensitivities as the ship was in these waters because of India's invitation, Sibal said in a post on Twitter. You heard it yesterday. The Iranian ambassador to India, Mohammad Fatali, condemned the attack and said the ship was unarmed. Now, this is an Iranian official speaking, so you can expect the language to be a little strident. They are, after all, being bombed relentlessly by us right now, even if they're not at war, depending on who you ask. We will respond to this assassination very strongly. By the way, I don't know whether that was just their own wording or they were like, we have to make Donald Trump understand this. We will respond to this assassination very strongly. Get it? Right. The ship was unarmed and in a regular maneuver at sea. I think that the United States and the Zionist regime, they had to throw that in, it's Iran, want to disturb and destroy all the international law and international norms, Fatali said. All right. Well, I get your point. By the way, the scale of this thing, now you're going to finally know about this. This is the part that'll make you really, sad and embarrassed. At least 87 sailors were killed in the torpedo attack in international waters in the Indian Ocean. Now we actually are starting to get the toll of this thing. Sinking a ship is pretty serious. And, those naval ships, they're crowded. 87 sailors killed at least. And the Sri Lankan Navy responded to the Dina's distress call and rescued 32 survivors. But 61 members of the crew are still missing. So that could be, all right, well, do we want to do the math? I want to get it right here. 87 confirmed dead, 61 missing. Hopefully some of those turn up alive. 148, though, could be dead and missing from all of this. 32 survivors. Not great. And, of course, you'll note the Sri Lankan Navy scooped up the survivors. The U.S. did not respond to the call, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth crowed about the attack to reporters on Wednesday. Shall I give you the crowing? An American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters because international law and stuff. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Instead, there are two options: safe in international waters or sunk by a U.S. torpedo. Hegseth said, it was sunk by a torpedo, Hegseth said, calling it a quiet death, which it's not, really. It's quiet until the explosion part. As a result of the attack, but it's the explosion part, by the way, that's the death part. So it's not quiet at all. He's dumb and whatever. But okay, as a result of the attack, an Iranian supply tanker that was also near Sri Lanka, the IRIS, Islamic Republic of Iran ship, Bushehr, Bushehr, has taken refuge in the island country. Another ship that was nearby, I don't know whether it was there for the exercise or whatever, has docked in Sri Lanka rather than run the risk of being torpedoed out there now. So not great, terrible situation. And of course, once again, I guess a reflection of what's going on in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific down in the Ecuador area, where the United States is now routinely torpedoing, missiling, bombing, what have you, speedboats out there and refusing to respond to the distress calls and pick up survivors as the international rules of war would have it. But the sinking of the Dina seems to be part of Hegseth's new policy of ignoring, quote, stupid rules of engagement and, quote, punching them while they're down. And it raises questions of what the Trump administration would say if a country like Iran attacked an American ship that it knew was unarmed. Let's say, I don't know, for the sake of argument, the United States ship or USS, I don't know, we use beautiful, clean coal, right? So let's say it was called the USS Cole, for instance. Maybe you change the spelling just to confuse the enemy or something like that. And if you were to just sort of attack it out of nowhere and bomb it and kill and injure the soldiers aboard, probably America would say that was terrorism. Which is why I say, well, if we saw it elsewhere, we probably would call it terrorism. So there you go. Anyway, you're super smart from having heard that. It was a good catch by Olga Nestorova. And I'm glad that we were able to bring it to you early, and it felt like you got the news a day in advance once again. So, all right, other interesting items that will add to the mix here. I don't even know where to go next, but just checking the clock here. Yeah, I think we got time for this one. From our continuing files on political union with Russia to own the globalists, we have this monkey wrench thrown in the works of our political union with Russia. Russia is providing Iran intelligence to target U.S. forces, officials say. The political union with Russia is a one-way street in all of this, right? Trump does Russia's bidding for reasons of his own, and presumably Kevin McCarthy was right about the reason, getting paid by Putin. Ha, swear to God. Okay, just joking. Everybody stay silent about that. And when it comes to receiving help from Russia in exchange for our subservience, the answer is hell no. We wanted you to do our bidding because we couldn't ordinarily do this to you by force of arms. But when we found out you had an idiot president who thought it would be fun and impressive to just do whatever the Russian president says to do, like Good. Fantastic. Go ahead and do it. Oh, you think we're friends? Now, Russia is providing Iran intelligence to target U.S. forces, officials say. The targeting information has included the locations of American warships and aircraft in the Middle East, the officials said. And are we sure that this isn't Lauren Boebert texting that information and not a Russian? We'll find out. Noah Robertson, Ellen Nakashima, and Warren P. Strobel on the byline here. Again, we're talking Washington Post. Don't know exactly why this is of advantage to Jeff Bezos and the Amazon.com empire, but I guess we're supposed to keep that in mind. But if you can make a connection, let me know. Russia is providing Iran with targeting information to attack American forces in the Middle East. The first indication that another major U.S. adversary is participating. I think I finally ditched the adversary pronunciation. But maybe we'll bring it back. Oh, I have a pronunciation note here, too. All right, I got to start making notes to myself. One, the thing that Justice sent me. And two, pronunciation. Yesterday's pronunciation problem was actually just a reading problem of desalinization versus desalination. Perhaps we'll get to that later on. But the assistance, which has not previously been reported... did I miss the end of the sentence here because I got distracted? All right, there was the first indication that another major U.S. adversary is participating, even indirectly, in the war, according to three officials familiar with the intelligence. That adversary, Russia. I bet you didn't know they were an adversary if you were if you were only getting your news from the President of the United States of America and his circle. Well, you might not know that they were an adversary. The assistance, which has not previously been reported because you would want to keep that sort of thing secret, signals that the rapidly expanding conflict now features one of America's chief nuclear-armed competitors with exquisite intelligence capabilities. They throw that one in there. Let everybody know that at least the Russians are exquisite on something. Thank you, Washington Post. Since the war began Saturday, Russia has passed Iran the locations of U.S. military assets. The location of the secrets is the Pervolago bathroom. The location of the assets, though, I guess, presumably, supposedly secret, even though we know where the bases are, but maybe with more specificity to actually hit it with a drone. Right. So this would include warships and aircraft. This, again, according to the three officials who spoke on condition of anonymity because of the matter's sensitivity. If one of them is Edward Snowden, you get the idea. It does seem like it's a pretty comprehensive effort, one of the people said. The Russian embassy in Washington did not respond to a request for comment. I don't know why they would. Moscow has called for an end to the war, which it labeled an unprovoked act of armed aggression, which they were laughing when they put that in there. And right, see, you hypocrites, you criticize... again, we're getting more Dracula than Russia. Criticize our invasion of Ukraine. How dare you? You're hypocrites. You're doing the same thing. Yeah. But they love that more than anything else. 6 U.S. troops were killed and several others were injured by an Iranian drone attack on Sunday in Kuwait. Iran has fired thousands of one-way attack drones. I mean, yeah, I guess. But I guess you might think drones would return. I did see somebody describe them as kamikaze drones, and I guess that's what they mean by one way, but they didn't want to use that terminology. All right, one-way attack drones. We have this one-way nuclear bomb we just dropped on you, but it is a one-way bomb by design. All right. And hundreds of missiles, of course, also having been fired at U.S. military positions, embassies, and civilians. Even as the joint American-Israeli campaign has hit more than 2,000 Iranian targets, including ballistic missile sites, naval assets, and the country's leadership in elementary schools. The Iranian regime is being absolutely crushed, said a White House spokeswoman, Anna Kelly, without commenting on any Russian aid to Iran. Their ballistic missile retaliation is decreasing every day. Their navy is being wiped out. Their production capacity is being demolished, and proxies are hardly putting up a fight. It's almost like you're forcing them into asymmetric terrorist-based warfare. Golly, there's no danger of that, I'm sure. And also years and years of support for Hezbollah and terrorist organizations around the world. Clearly no problem for us. The CIA and the Pentagon declined to comment when asked this week about his message to Russia and China, which are among Iran's most powerful backers. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, everything has moved because of an ad somewhere. Where were we? Pete Hegseth, right, said that he didn't have one. What's your message to Russia and China? I don't have one. And they're not really a factor here. Okay, sure. Two of the officials familiar with Russia's support for Iran said that China did not appear to be aiding Iran's defense, despite close ties between the two countries. Maybe not. I don't know. My recollection back in the olden days of the 1980s and the reflagging of the Kuwaiti oil tankers, I am reminded that those silkworm missiles at the Straits of Hormuz were of Chinese manufacture. They may be outdated. And who knows what they're using out there now. In a statement, the Chinese embassy in Washington referred to Beijing's diplomatic efforts to engage with partners in the region since the war began and said that the conflict should be, quote, immediately ceased. Analysts said that sharing of intelligence would fit the pattern of Iran's strikes against U.S. forces, including command and control infrastructure, radars, we've heard more, there's more about that, by the way, and temporary structures like the one in Kuwait, where 6 service members were killed. The CIA's station at the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia's capital, was also struck in recent days. And remember, we don't even officially acknowledge that there are such places. Or we're not supposed to anyway, because it'll get targeted. Iran is making very precise hits on early warning radars and over-the-horizon radars. My favorite OTHB, over-the-horizon backscatter radar. I don't know if they're all still backscatter. It still matters, but all right. That, according to Dara Massacut, an expert on the Russian military and the Carnegie Endowment at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, presumably also an expert on the Carnegie Endowment itself, being part of it. They're doing this in a very targeted way. They're going after command and control, she added. Iran possesses only a handful of military-grade satellites and no satellite constellation of its own, which would make imagery provided by Russia's much more advanced space capabilities highly valuable, particularly as the Kremlin has honed its own targeting after years of war in Ukraine, Massacut said. A little bit more about that and connected stories after this. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We press ahead with our second hour. We were in the middle of reading the Washington Post's story, the Amazon Post's story about the possibility that the Russians were sharing intelligence with the Iranians and helping them target American assets, troops, etc. overseas. Right, and there was mention of over-the-horizon radar as well. So note to self to go back to the radar story. I got a note from a listener about that as well. A name to pronounce here. Nicole Grajewski is my best attempt at this one, who studies Iran's cooperation with Russia at the Harvard Kennedy School's Belfer Center. Gosh, another thing to append to all of that. The Harvard Kennedy School of Government, right? Harvard Kennedy School of Government's Belfer Center. Said that there had been a high level of sophistication in the Iranian retaliatory strikes, both in what Tehran has targeted and its ability in some cases to overwhelm U.S. and allied defenses. You've heard that here, right? That sometimes the low or lower tech weapons can overwhelm the high-tech weapons just by volume alone. And if it doesn't cost nearly as much to flood the zone as it does to defend the zone, and if you can't have a 100% success rate, this even asymmetrical warfare, even in traditional, straightforward, high-tech warfare, can actually work. And then, of course, the targeting selections are of interest too. And the story we read yesterday about the possibility of targeting of desalination plants in the region, they did sort of warn us that would be kind of done on the down low, and they might not necessarily want to trumpet that as a focus of attacks because it carries some, human rights / war crime violation overtones. But I guess they want to clear the field for that, for the United States to do all of to commit all of the war crimes there. Okay. Well, to continue on with this story, they're getting through air defenses, she said, noting that the quality of Iran's strikes appeared to have improved even from its 12-day war with Israel last summer. And I guess it seems like the subtext of this here, they're getting through the air defenses. Like anything can get through just by sheer chance. And if you throw enough missiles or drones or whatever at the system, there's going to be failure at some level. The more you send, the more likely that some will actually get through. And that's easily understood, I think. But I think more to the point, you want them to get through at the right place, right? So if you're just lobbing everything you have in the general direction of whether it be Israel or Kuwait or Bahrain or Abu Dhabi or what have you, that's one thing. Okay, something's going to get through, right? We're going to send, it's a 99% success rate, well, 93, I think, in the case of the UAE. So 93%. We're going to fire 100 projectiles of some kind or another. 93 of them will get knocked down. 7 will land. But if you're just scattering them in the general direction, well, we hit a gas station. That sucks because you've seen in the movies they explode. Or whatever, a vacant lot, a luxury hotel. These are all, no one wants to be hit by these things. But if you want one of them to hit something really good or really bad, as the case may be, you got to have some precision to your targeting, and it will help, right? So that's the value of that intelligence in this battle of attrition between low tech, low cost zone flooding versus high tech, high cost tracking radar and precision defense weapons. If only 7 things are going to get through, if they fall all over the place, it's not nearly as valuable as if one of them happens to hit the targeting radar or desalination plant. And you can focus your fire. Your 100 missiles can go, within a radius that gives you a higher chance of probability of a strategic success when your 1 to 7 missiles actually make it. So, the Pentagon is quickly burning through its supply of precision arms and air defense interceptors. You heard that too. This, people familiar with the matter have told the Washington Post, the Amazon Post, underscoring concerns raised by General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I can't believe that he has a cool nickname and is still not managing this war better. But this, according to, underscoring concerns raised by General Kane as President Trump deliberated whether to approve the operation. Deliberated, doing a lot of work there. That is not warranted. The administration has sought to downplay Kane's assessment. So Dan Kane, I guess, next on the chopping block for getting fired. Russia's assistance reshuffles how various countries have engaged in a proxy war since Russia's 2022 full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Throughout that conflict, U.S. adversaries, including China, Iran, and North Korea, have provided Russia with either direct military aid or material support for Moscow's vast defense industry. And I mean, that's clear, but part of the background that maybe should be restated is up to and including ground troops. Like North Koreans have in fact been captured by Ukrainian forces on the ground, providing, like infantry level work. The United States has given Ukraine tens of billions of dollars worth of military equipment and shared intelligence on Russia's positions to improve Kyiv's targeting. And here, although I did not prepare this material to share with you, I have seen reporting, you may have seen it too, but if not, you should know that, one, we did mention the other day that Trump was blaming although he may be denying any shortfalls, but somebody somewhere along the line in the Trump administration was, and I think it came through in one of his Truth Social posts, which he may or may not have authored, but that if there really was a shortfall in precision or other kind of munitions here, it was probably because we had wasted them all on Ukraine. We gave them all to Ukraine to do that stupid war thing against Russia or whatever, which we should totally stop. But they ruined it all, and now we don't have them. And at the same time, by the way, an announcement from Ukraine's President Zelensky saying, by the way, the United States has asked for Ukrainian help in fighting this war. And one, we could have laughed in your faces and said, what? Get bent. But we didn't. And not only did we not do it, we actually provided that help and asked no questions about this otherwise obviously insane, hypocritical, and stupid request from you guys. You're an ally. We treat allies like normal countries treat allies. We came, we helped. We did not ask any questions. Why should we help idiots like you when you guys don't know what the meaning of allyship is? That's the way normal countries work. But it must be frustrating, and at some point you wonder, clearly it wasn't going to be strategically valuable to Zelensky to stick his thumb in Trump's eye at this point. You got to do what you got to do to keep yourself supplied and keep yourself able to fight your own war. But it's indicative of a age-old problem for those of us on whatever this side might be called of this problem. Why does it always have to be us being the adults in the room? Why can't we say to hell with you and visit your consequences upon you directly? Maybe that day will come. I don't know. But sometimes being the adult in the room means I have to wait patiently for my opportunity to do this. On Thursday, there it is, we got ahead of ourselves. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky posted on Twitter that the Trump administration had requested assistance in helping protect against Iranian drones and that Kyiv would provide specialists in response. There's a bit more to that story, I think. So, but kudos to the authors for bringing it up, and to Jeff Bezos for allowing it to be brought up in the Amazon Post. Iran has been one of Russia's chief backers during the Ukraine war, sharing the technology to produce cheap one-way attack drones that have repeatedly been used to overwhelm Kyiv's air defenses and exhaust Western stocks of interceptors donated to protect Ukrainian cities. So there was a method to that madness. I guess the Iranians field testing their theory and weapons in Ukraine, but on behalf of Russia, which is also sort of weird. I mean, really nobody should be involved in that, and it involves some weirdness and lack of foresight, perhaps, and hypocrisy on Iran's part there. We're going to help the regional hegemon overwhelm their weaker neighbors. Oh no, a global hegemon is looking to overwhelm us. Crap, we didn't think about that. But I don't know. In the meantime, though, they have developed a very capable weapons system, field testing it in Ukraine, and happy to use it against Americans later on. The Russians are more than aware of the assistance that we are giving the Ukrainians, said one of the officials familiar with Moscow's support for Tehran. I think they were very happy to try to get some payback. The quality of Russia's intelligence collection is not on a par with America's. No way, sir. But still ranks among the world's best, this person continued. The Post has previously reported, I don't know how repeatedly, that despite the blow to one of its closest partners, the Kremlin sees possible advantages in a prolonged war between the U.S. and Iran, including higher oil revenue and an acute crisis that distracts America and Europe from the war in Ukraine. Yes, okay, I think we can all imagine that would be the case. Iran, whose supreme leader was killed early in the conflict, could become the latest country to lose a pro-Russian government in recent years, following a Syrian uprising in late 2024 that ousted longtime dictator Bashar al-Assad, and the U.S. military raid to seize Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in January. It's almost like we're not friends. Still, the lack of direct military involvement from Moscow is, in part, a sign of its need to focus elsewhere, Massicot said. I mean, they just really don't have the personnel to participate directly in this one. The Kremlin, she said, is very much considering this is not their problem and not their war. From a strategic calculus perspective, Ukraine is still far and away the number one priority because it's not very far or away from Russia, I guess, is why they might prioritize that one. Along the way, reading some, oh yes, right, the idea of the Iranian supreme leader being killed reminds me that, and this too, I don't think I put aside, it's just a flood of information out there, but have you seen, and I guess I'll scroll back and find this thing in my social media feed, but you should be aware, if you haven't seen it, that I guess, I don't remember what the context was. Oh yeah, right. I think Donald Trump, speaking from the Gilded Jabba Palace in the Oval Jabba Palace during press availability, says, and I don't remember exactly how he put it. Is that it here? Yeah. All right. I'll open it up here. Andrew Solander from Axios reporting that Trump tells Barack Ravid in an exclusive Axios interview, which I guess we could read, but perhaps I'll give you both the tweet and the link to the interview. But he tells Barack Ravid that he, Trump, quote, or has to, quote, be involved in the appointment of the next Iranian leader. What? Now he goes on to say that Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, the assassinated Ayatollah's 56-year-old son, hey, close in age, that he thinks Mojtaba Khamenei, quote, is a lightweight. Like, he's guaranteed he has no idea that he even had a son, but fine. He's a lightweight and unacceptable to me. Now, okay, I believe that he probably isn't acceptable to you, but I think everybody is unacceptable to you, probably. But do you see what's going on here? Right? He tells this interviewer, in order, I guess, for this war to come to a close, maybe now one of the new aims of this war is I have to be involved in the appointment of the next Iranian leader. Iranian leader? Like what? No. A lot of people think that is not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Or as we like to say it on this show, that's not how this works. Right? But scream it when you do that. This, by the way, the leader of Iran again. By the way, that is about as regime changey as regime change gets. We have already sworn on a stack of Bibles that this was not necessarily a regime change war, but it's also not a war. So if you believe us about the lie about it not being a war, then maybe you believe it's not about regime change. But if the president of the United States is saying the only acceptable leader for Iran is the one I have a role in choosing, because I don't know what, Board of Peace, I don't know, I want to be the leader of the Kennedy Center, so I'm that. I want to be the leader of the Board of Peace, so now I'm that. There is no Board of Peace. All right, well, we'll make it, then I'll be the leader of that. I want to have a role in choosing the Iranian leader. No, and not only is that regime change, and I mean really regime change, not just I want to choose the head of the new government, but regime change like there should be a new system of government in Iran, one in which the president of the United States inexplicably gets a role in choosing your leaders. By the way, I think if you want to have a role, you want to have a say in choosing Iran's leaders, you should be required to show proof of Iranian citizenship when you register to do that. I don't know whether he has got that. However, he's trying to fraudulently cast a vote as an illegal immigrant to Iran and choose their new. That's like insane. It's not a thing, and it's not only regime change in the form of the person who leads the regime, but this is the style and type of government you should have now. And the new Iranian constitution has a role for me, Donald Trump, in it. It's interesting. You might want to take a look at the interview, but you would have to be an Axios subscriber to have full-scale access to it. But we took the important part out of it there. Anyway, I don't know. I find it odd. And welcome, I guess, to, you know what, this could all work out. The new Iranian leader, of course, the one that's acceptable to him, will be the one that comes up with $1 billion to pay him to join the Board of Peace. And then Donald Trump will endorse the Board of Peace, endorsing the new Donald J. Trump Islamic Republic of Iran. That's going to change the name of the ships out there now. It's going to be the DJTIRIS. Dina. That's a lot of letters to have to stick in there. It's inexplicable that anybody treats him as an adult at this point. What a demand that is to make. All right. I have to circle back on a couple of other things here that I have notes about as well, including, let's see. One, the note from earlier in the show from Justice, who points out that there's you may be familiar with the origins of that new job for Kristi Noem. Remember, she's going to be special envoy to the S.H.I.E.L.D. of the Americas, which sounds like a new invention and something very, very stupid. And it seems stupid. It's not like the idea is ludicrous, Pan-American cooperation on drug interdiction, but it also feels like it's being done in a stupid way because, one, it's being done by Donald Trump, and two, I don't know what S.H.I.E.L.D. of the Americas is, but Justice says that it sounds like S.H.I.E.L.D. of the Americas is a revamp, maybe a rebrand of the School of the Americas, which is familiar to old people like us, and he provides a link to the Wikipedia page here. And I guess the School of the Americas, if you remember it well, you will understand why it would have gone through several revamps and rebrands. It basically became infamous as a CIA-run torture school for Latin American regimes with which we were allied at the time, for good or for ill, mostly ill. Good for them. The regimes, that is, but then they later got killed in many cases, so really ill in the long run. But where we used to basically teach allied Latin American regimes how to remain in power through force, up to and including, right-wing death squads, kidnapping people off the streets, torturing them, etc. Promoted as inter-American cooperation. Send us your army officers and we'll train them in professional soldiery / death squads. And it was exposed over the years, and people who feel bad about such things said, let's not do that anymore. Okay, fine. We can block that in Congress. And prior to Trump administration coming into power, or even being a gleam in anyone's eye at that point, Republican administrations of the day still knew the playbook, invented the playbook for Donald Trump, will nod and say, yes, we're totally complying with that, and then change the words and say, there you go, we're still in compliance because you said we couldn't do this as the School of Americas. We're now Schoolhouse Rock of the Americas, and you can't stop us. In fact, the Wikipedia entry points to Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation. The Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation, WHINSEC, Western Hemisphere, WHINSEC, formerly the School of the Americas, not School of Rock, but School of the Americas, not Schoolhouse Rock of the Americas. It is a United States Department of Defense school, now, of course, Department of War school, except not really Department of War, located at Fort Benning, briefly known as Fort Moore, in Columbus, Georgia. The only thing that hasn't changed its name in all of this is Columbus, Georgia, which is interesting. What's this? The School of the Americas. The Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation. What's that? It's run by the Department of Defense. Department of War. At Fort Benning. Fort Moore. Fort Benning. None of this stays the same. The school was renamed in the 2001 National Defense Authorization Act. Why? Because they spent the 1990s telling everybody what the School of the Americas did. The institute was founded in 1946. By the year 2000, more than 60,000 Latin American military, law enforcement, and security personnel had attended the school. It's good to attend school, right? Stay in school, kids. The school was located in the Panama Canal Zone, of course, until its expulsion in 1984. Why was it expelled? Everybody figured out what it was. And, it spent the next decade telling America what it was. And then they said, aha, we'll rename it. And move it, and rename where we moved it to, and then rename that again. When the Institute was still known as the School of the Americas, it had what it described as a Hall of Fame, honoring its most accomplished alumni. I guess if you were one, you would be a bust in the Hall of Fame. And let's tell you about who's in the Hall of Fame. At the time, it included Bolivian dictator General Hugo Banzer Suarez, drug lord and dictator Manuel Noriega, and Guatemalan General Manuel Antonio Callejas y Callejas. I should be more familiar with the names of the various Central American dictators who would be in the Hall of Fame, but that's a new one on me. I don't know. I don't follow that scene all that well, but okay. Roll that closely. As a part of the U.S. Army's restructuring initiated in December of 2025, the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation is aligning with the newly created United States Army Western Hemisphere Command. The shift integrates regional security training, education, and partnerships under a single 4-star command designed to enhance theater security cooperation and operational focus across the hemisphere. Okay. Is there a part here where we get to S.H.I.E.L.D. of the Americas? I'm not sure. And that may be otherwise speculation, perhaps, on Justice's part that this is going to incorporate all of that, or is it just something we're creating alongside this revamped School of the Americas? I'm not sure. And I'm not sure if this article will tell us. I'm scrolling kind of down here. Are there, by the way, I guess now that I'm happening past the graduates of the School of the Americas portion, you've heard about the Hall of Fame, but this is full of, it's the rogues gallery of Latin American right-wing dictatorships, essentially. And I don't know. You should spend some time reading it over the weekend if you're not familiar. And if you are familiar, you might just be able to say, oh, yeah, all right, I know who we're talking about here. And great. Of course, they would put Kristi Noem in charge of this stupid thing. But we'll have to see whether we can establish whether there's a more direct connection, or perhaps Justice has done that for his show. I'm not sure whether we'll be hearing more about that today, but if it's next week, that would be an interesting tip-off. And once again, you'll sound that much smarter at the water cooler but remember to hedge your bets and say, well, it sounds to me like it might just be a revamping of the School of the Americas. Now, the S.H.I.E.L.D. of the Americas has that ring to it. All right, moving on to a couple of other interesting items for prior to getting to the weekend. Let me throw this one out there because this is kind of interesting and timely. Back to Axios, believe it or not, for a report from Alex Eisenstadt, whose report I guess we'll have to see if we can get via Instapaper instead. But an intriguing headline now that we're done with Dan Crenshaw from Texas, how a feud led a billionaire donor to oust Representative Crenshaw. The story we were getting yesterday was that he wasn't MAGA enough, not Trumpy enough. Trump endorsed the other guy. who, of course, was plenty Trumpy, and we'll see whether he ever gets his face eaten by leopards. But, and out goes Crenshaw, that it was Trump flexing his muscles to say, you get out. But Trump flexes his muscles very often, most often, with other people's money. And so we'll see what kind of engagement and cooperation there may have been. But Texas Representative Dan Crenshaw owes his defeat. He doesn't have to actually pay it back in any way, but owes his defeat in this week's Republican primary to a billionaire mega donor who was hell-bent on ending Crenshaw's career, sources tell Axios. Now, I don't know whether Crenshaw has access to the kind of capital it would take to pay back that debt, owing your defeat to a billionaire, but let me sort out the Instapaper version of this Axios article. It comes through a little funky in their weird formatting, and tell you about who is this billionaire and why was he mad at Dan Crenshaw. It's easy to be mad at Dan Crenshaw, but it would be so much easier to overlook your problems with Dan Crenshaw if you were also sitting on piles of billions of dollars. I would personally spend my money that way, but this weirdo didn't. Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, one crisp dollar bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. It's a dash to the end of the week. One more segment to go here. We're just getting started on the rumor, the report. We can call it a report now. I can see it. It's right in front of me. Report that Dan Crenshaw was targeted by an angry, maybe MAGA billionaire, and that's how he ended up getting dumped. We'll find out about that. Oh, by the way, a note came in here from Rosalind McGregor asking whether Kristi Noem, we did address this earlier, whether Kristi Noem will have to leave her waterfront house for the top Coast Guard official now that she's not DHS secretary. Only, I don't know. No one knows because there were no rules. She wasn't supposed to be in that house anyway. It doesn't belong to the DHS secretary. They just kicked the Coast Guard person out. I don't know whether Markwayne Mullin would want to move to it. I assume so. I assume he'll want to say I can live on a military base and have like guards outside of my house. Sure, I'd rather have that. But moving is a pain in the butt. So who knows? We don't know whether he's going to do it. We don't know whether Kristi Noem is still in place until the end of the month. I think there was some hint yesterday. I didn't read the reporting at the time, and then it was superseded by the reports that she was going to be moving to this new job and then whatever, and that Markwayne Mullin was acting or not acting, whatever. But I'm not sure whether – I thought I had seen somewhere that maybe effective at the end of the month she was going to be out. Or what? Not out of the house. That I don't know. Nobody knows the rules for that. There are no rules. Okay. But back to the Dan Crenshaw stories, right? So Texas Representative Dan Crenshaw owes his defeat in the Republican primary to a billionaire mega donor who was hell-bent on ending his career, sources tell Axios. And I love/hate, but mostly hate. So hate/love/hate. The Axios formatting, breaking down every story into, no matter how interesting and relevant the story, making you feel dumb for reading it, why it matters, all of these things. I know they think this clarifies and makes it a quick read, and it does. It makes it quick read. It doesn't really clarify. It makes you dumber and makes me feel dumb knowing that people are being made more dumb by analyzing things. Why it matters. Why it matters? Why would it matter, anybody, that a billionaire could say, I don't like a member of Congress. I will buy that guy out of Congress. Not pay him to leave. That would be a problem too, maybe, I guess. But, we do that all the time. I'll hire you as a lobbyist for twice your congressional salary. Okay, I resign. That's a way of doing it. But to say, I have pocket change that would ordinarily be a vast fortune to others, I'm going to drop it on ruining this guy and replacing him. Why it matters, we're a democracy. That's why. Oh, no, we're a republic. Sorry. That's why it matters. But usually the problem I have with Axios in this way of reporting is they usually report along the lines of why it matters. Why it matters because it's just so crazy, it just might work. Golly gee. Or, others will have to hire more consultants in order to fight back against this. That's not really the why it matters part. But what do they say this time? Maybe they hit it on nailed it right on, hit the nail on the head. Why does it matter? According to Axios, Texas banker Robert Marling's role in funding an anti-Crenshaw advertising blitz starkly illustrates, how a lone billionaire can banish a member of Congress. They did hit the nail on the head this time. Good for you. In this case, Marling's clout meant Crenshaw was the first House incumbent to be ousted in 2026. That's not really why it matters. Crenshaw lost to Texas State Representative Steve Toth, not Hoth, the ice planet, but Toth, like Laszlo Toth, in case you remember who that is. But if you don't, I can outline it for you at some point, but I once read the books. Laszlo Toth, anyway, we'll get back to that later on, but you can look it up if you wish. But anyway, it's not him. It is, what did we say the guy's name was? Steve Toth. Oh, okay. Yes. All right. I've lost where my place is. I'm in another window here. Got to get back to this. Toth is a hardline conservative who doesn't have a Crenshaw's independent streak. Okay, sure. Zoom out. I mean, what do you zoom out from when it's like billionaires are able to buy seats? The why it matters, they actually did a pretty good job in it. What's the zoom out? Maybe he did a great job here too. Marling donated $675,000 in the GOP primary, accounting for roughly 2/3 of the amount spent by a super PAC opposed to Crenshaw. Honestly, $675,000 in a Republican primary is a game changer, game winner anyway. But it's interesting how he chose to spend the money, giving it to a super PAC opposed to Crenshaw. That would obscure the lines between him and his money, although here it is being reported anyway, because nobody wants to spend, even a billionaire wants credit for $675,000. Even though, like I said, it's pocket change to a billionaire, he can drop it on a car, a boat, and not care. But why would he drop it on a car or a boat if people didn't see him in that car or on that boat, right? So I'm going to disguise the money until it's too late, but then I'm going to come back and claim credit for it. But it's interesting that it's only 2/3 of the money, not in the whole campaign. $675,000 should cover your entire primary, honestly. But I guess inflation, maybe it doesn't. It's not 2/3 of the money spent on the campaign. It's 2/3 of the money spent by a particular PAC on this campaign. Wow. Anyway, Marling's contributions bankrolled a stream of mailers and TV ads that have inundated Crenshaw's southeastern Texas district since the beginning of the year. Marling, a prolific donor to President Trump and conservative causes, played a, quote, massive role in the race. One person involved in the primary told Axios, short of Roberts' involvement, Dan would be reelected, said another. The backstory? That's the part that we're interested in. There's an ongoing feud between Crenshaw and Marling camps and a dispute about how it began. They don't even agree on that. Sources close to Marling said it started several years ago. We're going to do the Wayback Machine here. It started several years ago when he invited Crenshaw to appear at an annual conservative youth summit. Uh-oh. I see trouble brewing already. Crenshaw said he would speak only if audience members wore masks. Oh, wow, as the story goes. So I guess this would have happened several years ago. 1890, 1950. No, now we can place it. Only if the audience wears masks. Not because they're so ugly he didn't want to see them, but obviously COVID. Or he wanted to recruit them into ICE. I'm not sure which. And Marling said no. It's not going to happen. A person close to Crenshaw denies this happened. And I'm going to make another note to myself to see if there's something else we can get to later. I'm reminded by the masks. Sources, I'm sorry, this is the part we read. Then a year ago, Crenshaw told a person close to Marling that he wanted to put Marling's head through a wall. Crenshaw's team also denies this. I could believe that, knowing nothing about Marling, but there you have it. A Crenshaw ally said the bad blood has to do with the peculiarities of Texas's 2nd District. Oh, I'm sure that's it. Specifically, the Crenshaw represents the Harris County or Houston portion of the district, and Marling resides in the Montgomery County portion in Houston's northern suburbs. That probably explains it. I don't know, man. This source said there's been a rivalry between the two counties and that Marling wanted the district's representatives to be from Montgomery County, which he found in Toth. Others point to ideology. I would put my money there, honestly. Marling simply didn't regard Crenshaw as conservative enough, they say. Really, I mean, at this day and age, wow, that guy's from which county? Montgomery County, and that guy's not from, he's from Harris County. I want him to be from Montgomery County. I don't know why these guys are from Georgia, but, in the accent. It's a Texas thing. What they're saying? There was no feud, Crenshaw told Axios. A feud requires two people. I've never met Marling or even know him. Marling is a conspiratorial old man, which I know from not meeting him, I guess. Marling declined to comment. Zoom in. We zoomed out before. Now we're zooming in. In December, a strategist from a pro-Toth super PAC, which really, who even has one, visited Marling, asking for a $250,000 donation and outlined how the money would be spent. Marling said yes. Okay. But somehow he ended up getting to $675. Marling cut a $25,000 check in January and another for $200,000 on February 10th. These numbers aren't adding up. By early February, the Marling bankrolled offensive had taken a toll on Crenshaw. The pro-Toth super PAC's polling indicated Toth had cut substantially into Crenshaw's lead. Marling also worked behind the scenes, telling people around Trump, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, that he hoped the president wouldn't endorse Crenshaw. Trump ended up not endorsing in the primary, Johnson abdicating his role as Republican congressional leader there entirely because, he's afraid of Trump and billionaires. Things then took a turn on February 24th. By the way, what I mean by that is ordinarily you could reliably predict that the Republican Speaker of the House would say, listen, I don't know if I want to get involved in this fight, but generally speaking, we don't endorse against incumbents if they're running for re-election. They're almost always the best bet for retaining the seat. But I guess, you could probably convince Mike Johnson that down in Texas, more MAGA means more likely to win the seat. But still, they usually say, even if I don't love this guy, he's a colleague and we stick together because you never know where you're going to need his help, especially when I have a one-seat majority. But never mind all of that because Mike Johnson's an idiot and he doesn't know how to do this stuff. Things took a turn on February 24th when Crenshaw took to social media to attack Marling, who he doesn't know, who said he was funding all those slanderous mailers about me. He knew that, even if they never met. You can do that. Crenshaw also accused Marling's Wood Forest National Bank, I guess that's how he got to be a billionaire, of loaning $20 million to Colony Ridge, a residential development near Houston that conservatives say is a haven for undocumented immigrants. All right. A person close to Marling said he wasn't involved with Wood Forest at the time of the loan. Okay, Marling then struck back, launching a Twitter account devoted to attacking Crenshaw, which I would have been willing to do if he'd asked me. Dan is feeling the pressure because he has lost his way in our district, Marling wrote. Marling cut a final $200,000 check during the last week of the primary campaign. The money funded an ad in which Texas Senator Ted Cruz endorsed Toth. Between the lines, Cruz had several reasons for getting involved in the race, including his long-standing relationship with Marling. Sources familiar with Cruz's thinking told Axios. Marling had been a donor to Cruz since 2011 and was a major backer of his 2016 presidential bid. And as most people did when they were pro-Cruz and therefore anti-Trump initially, and then Cruz went nowhere, they became Trumpers. Cruz attended the funeral of Marling's daughter in 2022. It's a family affair in Cruz world, said one of the people involved in the primary. The Club for Growth, a conservative group Marling has funded in the past, also chipped in to run the ad. Turning Point USA, another organization Marling has bankrolled, also backed Toth. That's Charlie Kirk's thing. In the end, the primary wasn't close. Crenshaw lost to Toth 55-40. Marling was vacationing with his wife Kim in the Caribbean. Ooh, they can get shot down that way. When Tuesday's results came in. This is so great, he texted to a friend. So there you go. There's some behind-the-scenes drama. We're not sorry to see Crenshaw gone, but we are sorry to find out that there's an even worse person on his way. All right, let's see. What else do we have to share with everybody here? Some other stories. Let's see. The notes that I made to myself. Let's see. Justice. We got Justice's School of the Americas point there. Oh, I guess I needed to make better notes. I have a note to myself that I don't know what I was talking about in that note. Too bad. On another note, though, the masking note that came up during this last story, I saw something via Blue Sky this morning that I thought was annoying and stupid, and in fact it was. A Blue Sky post from the Bulwark covering, I guess, some Republican press conference yesterday in which Representative McClain is quoted. I don't know who Representative McClain is, but we'll look at it. It's McLain, Susan McClain from Oregon, and looks to be a small little person here, actually, just by comparison to who's next to her. I don't know whether, for all I know, they're very tall people, but it just looks like she's the shortest one of the bunch, but by far it really sticks out in the photo. But anyway, it says here that Representative McClain is saying, I don't know in what context, but they're, I guess, talking about ICE or whatever. And she throws in this little goofy joke here that is a Republican MO, right? You make a point that seems like it makes sense on the surface, but if you actually examine it for even 2 seconds, you realize, oh my God, there's no point there whatsoever. McClain saying, what I find a little bit funny is the party of masks all of a sudden wants to unmask all the ICE agents. And everybody's going to say, ha, 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 hypocrisy. Until, of course, somebody points out, for instance, well, you could just have answered, well, what I find a little bit funny is that the party that's against masks now wants ICE agents all to wear masks. I mean, why is that a good point? It's not. And in fact, it cuts against you. And remember, by the way, your whole objection to masks was, oh, I can't breathe. Oh, I'm going to get carbon dioxide poisoning, whatever that might be. It's unhealthy. I can't deal with this. Why would you want to hamper our brave Americans not in uniform working for ICE? It's almost as if there's no substance to the point whatsoever. And I'm sure the Bulwark is making fun of that point. I hope. Sometimes the Bulwark is a little bit weird and backwards. But whatever. I just found that to be odd. Certainly. It was, by the way, Steve Rocks. Steve Rocks 35, same username as he carried over from Twitter on Blue Sky, making that very obvious and very correct point when, you could turn that around instantly. But, in right-wing media, of course, you just, ignore the obvious boomerang effect of something like that. What else have I got here that I wanted to share with you? Oh, yes. Right. Some other listener feedback and stories. One on the pronunciation, not really a pronunciation issue, but word choice issue, that I kept saying desalinization rather than desalination. Apparently, they're both words. They both mean the same thing, but the current internationally recognized and accepted term for it is desalination. That it's an Americanism to say desalinization and mostly considered to be archaic, as your host is as well. But we thank our who brought that one up. Let me go and find that input from. I just got an email. Was it an email? Yeah. But John, and I think John, we identified you outright in the past, like last name and everything. I can't remember what your preferred protocol is, but John, a knowledgeable fellow, and I think also is right here in Virginia, who also suggests substantively that we ought to add this particular story to our Friday roundup. And so we'll do that now. It is a Virginia story. I feel compelled to do exactly that. And look at that. The picture is even from the Loudoun County Board of Election. Who took the picture here? I'm just curious because it's in the democracy docket. Anna Moneymaker for / Getty Images if you want to license the thing. So good job, Anna. You are making money. And I guess Anna Moneymaker is here. Maybe she's based here in Virginia, in Loudoun County. But it's a picture from the Office of Elections at Loudoun County illustrating this Virginia story. Statewide, Commonwealth-wide, despite weeks of confusion, yikes, Virginians, like me, will begin voting on redistricting referendum Friday, this Friday, today, right now. Natalie Hausman covers the story for Democracy Docket. That's Mark Elias's operation, if I'm not mistaken. Starting today, Virginians will head to the polls for the first day of early voting on a redistricting referendum. If passed, it could send a blue wave through the state. It's a Commonwealth. We know that. Despite weeks of confusion. Why do we have confusion? Well, it's caused by the GOP's attempts to block the vote. The Virginia Supreme Court has now twice affirmed a go-ahead for the redistricting referendum, choosing to weigh in on the legality of the referendum after voters head to the polls. Following successful GOP efforts in Texas, Missouri, and North Carolina to establish new Republican seats, Virginia Democrats hope to counter Trump's calls for gerrymandering to safeguard the Republican majority in the U.S. House. That probably alone will not do it, but okay. Joining California, Virginia is the second Democratic-led state to pursue new congressional maps to offset the GOP's mid-decade gerrymandering effort, which was initiated by Trump. If approved by Virginia voters, the constitutional amendment could allow state lawmakers to adopt a new map that could give Democrats 4 more seats in Congress. The special election over the new map has been defined by multiple GOP-initiated lawsuits. Here's a quick breakdown of what happened so far and what Virginians can expect as they head to the polls tomorrow. But by the way, in terms of voting, long story short, you're listening to this show and you're not furious and throwing things at your computer, you go and vote yes. That's the answer. Pass this constitutional amendment. But let's see. The breakdown is provided thus. As part of their plan to head off the new Virginia map, state and national Republicans filed 5 lawsuits. Boo-hoo, they're lawsuit babies. Challenging both procedural and substantive aspects of the referendum. 2 lawsuits filed by state lawmakers and local officials challenged the legality of the General Assembly's first vote to move the constitutional amendment toward a statewide vote. One lawsuit was dismissed, but in the other, a judge ruled that the first vote by the legislative body was null and void. That's an unusual finding. They usually don't do that stuff. 2 lawsuits specifically challenged the referendum ballot language. One suit filed by the Republican National Committee is pending before the state Supreme Court, and another filed by Republican state lawmakers is still being litigated in the trial court. Both lawsuits took issue with the language of the ballot question, claiming it lacked a neutral tone and could confuse voters. To the extent that any of you are confused, vote yes. If passed, the referendum would allow the Virginia General Assembly, right? All this is to do what? Allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming elections, while ensuring the Virginia standard redistricting process resumes for all future redistricting after the 2030 census, according to the ballot language. Despite initial lower court orders in favor of Republicans, the Virginia State Supreme Court has affirmed the referendum will appear on ballots in all counties starting today. February was marked with uncertainty between the state and county boards of elections after the RNC sought to halt preparations on the referendum vote with its initial lawsuit. When Tazewell County asked for clarification on what to do, the circuit court judge there, Jack Hurley Jr., ordered the Virginia State Board of Elections, the Department of Elections, and the Tazewell County local elections officials to cease all referendum preparation in the county. Hurley's order ignited confusion for election administrations across the state, and up until yesterday, county elections officials had been preparing for the special election without the help of state officials. But as of Wednesday afternoon, the amendment will be on all county ballots, including Tazewell, a reliably conservative county that was almost the only county barred from voting on the referendum by Republicans themselves. That would have been kind of funny. The Virginia Supreme Court held that Hurley went too far by stopping the redistricting referendum in Tazewell County. The ruling marked the second time in recent weeks that the state's highest court halted attempts to stop the referendum from moving forward. There's a lot of halting going on here. The Virginia Supreme Court's order means that the Department of Elections and Tazewell County can move forward with its preparations for the April 21st referendum. That's quote-unquote election day on this thing. Your last chance to vote when you vote in person. But you can vote early starting now, today, Friday, March 6th, and up to April 21st. The Virginia Department of Elections said in a statement to Democracy Docket on Thursday, aside from the legal saga, this special election has been costly for lobbying groups of both parties, with Democrats leading the charge. Democrats have poured over $20 million into funding Virginians for Fair Elections, with House Majority Forward and the Fairness Project contributing around $10 million each, according to the Virginia Public Access Project. Former President Barack Obama on Thursday announced his support, urging residents of the Commonwealth to vote yes on the ballot question. I told you to do the same. I did. I went first. Now, he did it first, of course. But let me be clear. You should apparently vote yes on this thing. So go ahead and do it. If you don't believe me, believe Obama. And if you don't believe Obama, I don't know. Go listen to Pod Save America. They're Obama people. I don't know. Anyway, honestly, it's interesting. It's nice to see him moving on something like this. He could easily have sat this out. But you could also look at it this way. Gee whiz, I'm not sure. Is this fair? Do we really want to be doing this stuff? Is this hypocrisy? If you can even get Barack Obama moved to this, you're going to be safe. You could still be pretty centrist and do what Obama says here. This amendment gives you the power to level the playing field in the midterms this fall, Obama said in a video posted on Twitter, which he shouldn't be on anymore. Anyway, conversely, the Virginia Public Access Project shows nearly $300,000 from Republican-aligned donors for the GOP lobbying group Virginians for Fair Maps, because that's what everybody's interested in. Maps really bother me. Anyway, early voting starts today, and voting day for the special election is April 21st. So there you go. I myself, will I be heading out? Should I be cheerleading for this and leading by example and going and voting early today? I probably won't. Why? John actually probably knew this when I answered him an email yesterday, because he's I think in Virginia, so he knows. And it's probably the same where you live. Yes, early voting starts today, but if you want to do the earliest of early voting, there's really only one location to do it, and it's at the county elections office, which is not like that far away, but it's not close. And also, it's just a big jumbled mess, and the parking lot there is going to be filled with weirdos harassing you about this stuff. So if you wait a couple of weeks, they'll start doing satellite office early voting later on, much closer. I mean, the parking lot is still a zoo, but it's a better, bigger parking lot. And then, of course, you could wait to vote in person on the 21st, but I'll bank my vote early. But I'll do it when the satellite offices open closer to me. Just, on a personal note. All right. Let's see. There's an awful lot still happening, of course. And, I want to put another story on the record here, even though we got to make our run out the door here. But it might be something that Justice covers. I'll check in with that in a second. But interesting developments in the gigantic Fort Bliss, Texas ICE detention centers where disease has been running rampant, including now a measles outbreak. Anyway, as it turns out, basically, I've got a headline here from the Washington Post, which should be of interest, and maybe you want to spend a little time perusing it over the weekend. ICE taking steps to close detention center at Fort Bliss. Document shows preparations to shutter Camp East Montana in El Paso come less than 8 months after the facility's opening, according to an internal ICE document, ending a tumultuous experiment in large-scale detention where 3 detainees died, of course, mostly from medical neglect and mistreatment. Now, same location with a measles outbreak. It's only going to get worse. All sorts of stories about the abuse and neglect inside of the facility. It was a very promising headline, and I don't know whether it's going to go anyplace or whether it's going to deliver on the promise of the headline of ending the experiment of these large-scale detention centers. Now that, of course, the idiot that was heading up DHS and is now fired had spent millions of dollars over valuation to buy these enormous warehouse sites to try to build gigantic detention centers. They may end up just splitting it up into any number of smaller ones, but that will actually probably presumably easier to, not neglect the prisoners in, if that was a goal. Anyway, it's a great example also of local government and local populace fighting back against establishing these things. A good win, something to read over the weekend, and for Justice to discuss next week if he doesn't get to it today. And me too.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Here's what he has got in store for you. 20 states have rushed to court to put a stop to Trump's nasty habit of stealing Americans' money through a new illegal tax scheme on international goods. Oh, yeah, tariffs. Oregon lawmakers, by the way, approved a measure to prohibit ICE agents from wearing masks. That must have been what triggered the whole thing. That's it. The answer is all in Justice's program next.